Hey guys, Dazzler Magic here, and it's time to finally reveal the Historic Anthology 3, the set of cards that Wizards thinks that for some reason the Historic format needs. Spoiler alert, they are always partially wrong. So I just kind of dumped the list into this folder here and haven't looked at them yet. I know what a couple of these do, and I'm pissed off about at least one of them, but let's just jump right in. This is my initial impressions. So first we've got Honden of Cleansing Fire. A couple Hondens I saw in there, but not all of them. I think there's 5. There's a 4-cost legendary enchantment shrine, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 2 life for each shrine you control. So, I mean, in the mono white life gain deck that this is probably designed for, 2 life, but that's cool. I mean, that's one better than Nyx Spawn or Nyx Fleece Ram or whatever, which they put in last time. I guess they are really doubling down on mono white life gain, which, I mean, you can only have so many damn cards in the deck. I am absolutely dominating standard with my mono white life gain Heliod deck, so, did we really need this? Probably not. It's legendary, so honestly, so as not to cripple the deck, I'd probably throw 1 in, especially with it costing 4. I don't really see the need for this, but there are like 2 other Hondens, so I don't know. Next up, Momentary Blink. It's a 2-cost instant and exile target creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control. Then it has flashback 4, but that includes 1 blue. So just your standard flicker spell. Flickering has been pretty degenerate lately, and I want to point that out because lately is what Historic format is. Considering what that stupid companion Flickerfest flying snake piece of crap did to Standard, I don't think we needed this card. A lot of the ETB effects are too good right now. I don't think they should have printed this. Next up, Tempered Steel. It's a double white, which is very unusual. 3-cost enchantment, rare, and artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. Okay, what they need to do is pretend that artifact creatures was never a thing, that they never designed it, and never try to make it a deck again. Because with Steel Overseer, it is so degenerate, potentially, and people honestly, like historically in other formats, hate anything to do with artifacts. They need to shy away from artifacts like Infect and Affinity. Affinity for anything. Yes, I know, the first one pops in your mind. Affinity for artifacts. So considering this is an artifact card, 1, why the hell is this not blue? And 2, why the hell is this not an artifact? Most of the major artifact cards recently are blue or heavily blue oriented, so this is really random and weird. And it opens up decks that are just degenerate. It doesn't even say non-tokens. I hate everything about this card. It's a double Lord card, and it's not a creature. So that's just bad. Next up, Timely Reinforcements. It's a 3-cost sorcery from M12 as a uncommon. That's weird. If you have less life than an opponent, you gain 6 life. Cool. If you control fewer creatures than an opponent, put 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield. Okay, so if neither of those is true, the spell does nothing. But that's fine because you're probably winning, right? Not necessarily. I do not like unreliable spells, but this is a pretty good equalizer, but I mean, it's not even instant speed. You can't drop them into block. This just doesn't strike me as a very good card. Next up, Body Double. Like we needed this. It's a 0/0 5-cost shapeshifter. You may have Body Double enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature in a graveyard. Your graveyard or your opponent's graveyard. Okay, so at least you can't have 2 in play at once. Not that it would violate the legendary rule. There's only 1 card that does that. Plus it costs 5, so, I mean, how good is it? It doesn't maintain the ability, which some shapeshifters do, where you can, like, pay blue and turn it into something else later. And the thing already had to have been either milled or killed. Now, that said, I consider this practically free casting if you put, like, well, in Historic maybe not, but an Eldrazi Titan into the graveyard. So just self-mill and play this. I mean, play blue-black, play Dimir, that's already a good deck. Self-mill, resurrect. This is basically resurrecting. So I just don't like it. I've never really liked shapeshifters or cloning or any of that. It tends to get out of control real quick. But for 5 mana, maybe not. I don't know. Hard to say. Next up, another Honden. It's the Honden of Seeing Winds. It's a 5-cost legendary enchantment shrine, and at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card for each shrine you control. Holy crap. So, I mean, what's blue, white, and popular right now? Probably all flyers, I guess? Yeah, the life gain and the card draw. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say no to it. Esper, control, that would be something. Blue, white, black. Outdrawing your opponent 2/1 after dropping this in, and 5 mana is not too big of an ask. Just saying. And you can outdraw your opponent 3/1 if you drop in the other shrine. So, yeah. Dangerous card. Very, very dangerous card. Next up, Silent Departure, last seen in Eternal Masters. It's a 1-cost sorcery, return target creature to its owner's hand, and then it has flashback 5. So it's cheap, but it's sorcery speed. So, I mean, if it's not instant speed, you lost at least 75% of the usefulness. You can go for an ETB again, but instead of a direct flicker, you have to pay for the damn thing again to get it back into play. So, I don't know, this just doesn't seem that great. That said, if you got some crazy ETB, who knows? If anybody has the balls to play this on Agent of Treachery, they are going to take a Barstool to the face. That is the Barstool card right there. Next up, a card that got kicked out of my Modern deck for just being too unreliable and too stupidly weak, Swan Song. Counter target enchantment, instant, or sorcery spell. So, almost a negate. It's like, what, 80% there? I mean, you can't do planeswalkers, can't do artifacts. It's probably half as powerful. I don't know. With prevalence, people probably play more instants and sorceries. But, yeah, its controller, as in the person who casts the spell, gets a free 2/2 flying bird token. What the hell? These would just pile up in my hand. I would never want to give them a 2/2 flyer, and the only time I ever played this is to play one, and then play another one to counter it so that I get the bird. This is such a useless, pointless piece of garbage spell. That said, I think it's a pretty good Legacy Vintage staple because the gameplay rate is like turn 2. I mean, it's a joke. You don't have to worry about a 2/2 bird swinging at you for a couple turns because there is no such thing as a couple turns in Legacy and Vintage. So to try to put this in Historic, absolutely dead on arrival unplayable card. Now that said, would people run it in Esper Control? Probably, but they have a lot of mana, so what's the point? Just run Negate. Next up we got Chainer's Edict, famous card here. It's a 2-cost sorcery, target player sacks a creature, and then flashback 7. Absolute classic card, we needed this. This is the kind of bread and butter staple stuff that they need to start putting in. A lot of people find themselves saying right now, even in Standard, I need to kill something, I'd love it if it costs 2, and I needed to bypass Hexproof and Indestructible potentially. The problem is, it's the opponent's choice. So in a kill-heavy deck, this is wonderful. In like a deck with almost no kill spells, they're just going to sack a token or something and you're going to get nowhere with it. The flashback is nice, but good luck getting to 7. Keep in mind, we do have a War of the Spark uncommon called Liliana's Triumph. It costs 2, it's instant speed, and each opponent sacrifices a creature. Then if you control a Liliana Planeswalker, they also discard a card. It's just a superior card. Feel free to run both, but call me crazy, but I want to blow up what I want to blow up, not what my opponent wants to get blown up. Next up, dust off this antique from like 20 years ago. It's Gem Palm Polluter, a 4/3 zombie creature for 6 that is cycling 2 double black, and when you cycle Gem Palm Polluter, you may have target player lose 1 life for each zombie in play. Holy crap. When would you ever natural cast this? Just cycle it. A 4/3 for 6 is garbage. This is a strange choice. But remember, in a very recent video, I said Zombie Tribal is like hyper powerful, but pales in comparison to Tier 1 right now. Well, they're trying. The problem is you're paying 6, you get no life out of it, and there are better versions of anything like this in black. I mean, Battle at the Bridge was better. It's not in Historic, but it's still better. Hell, Grey Merchant is a better card than this. Next up, apparently Honda Civics come in black as well, because we've got Honda of Night's Reach, a 4-cost legendary enchantment shrine. At the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent discards a card for each shrine you control. That is disgustingly overpowered. I'm sick just looking at it. Recurring free discards. Are you kidding me? You are going to empty their hand every single turn. This is the most broken card they could have possibly put in here. What an absolute disgrace to the game this piece of garbage is. Hand Disruption and Forced Discard has been voted very recently the most annoying thing that most of the pros want gone more than any other function of the game. I agree, let me play my f***ing deck. And this is a nearly impossible to blow up enchantment because who the hell runs enchantment removal? Even if you did run it, they probably just made you discard it. You basically just don't get to play your deck from until this enters play until the end of the game, you don't get to play your deck. Sorry. Absolute bullshit. I hate this card. Next up, Phyrexian Obliterator was in my last video. We already knew this like a week ago. Moving on, we've got Unburial Rites, a 5-cost sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Flashback 4, including a white for some reason. Yeah, famous cards, your classic Resurrection. It costs 5, which is a lot, but you could revive something that costs a lot more than 5. This is degenerate as all hell in like Modern because you could target like an Eldrazi or something. During Eldritch Moon, I literally had a deck called Alzambly, and it was pretty hard to beat. It was just self-mill, resurrect, boom, there it is, basically free casting. I think you know my opinion on free casting at this point, so screw this card. Every single black resurrection effect should have a limit on the mana cost or the power or something like that, or like at least the color. I mean, you can't just let it resurrect anything of any size. That's ridiculous. Next up, Devil's Play. It's 1 red plus an X sorcery, and it deals X damage to any target, which puts it miles ahead of Heat Ray. Then it has Flashback, triple red plus X. So that's going to be a lot weaker the second time around, but you might get something out of it, a little removal or something. So, I mean, creature, planeswalker, your opponent's face, whatever, it's flexible and only attacks on 1 on top of it. This is an insanely powerful card. It's so classic red. Now, do I actually want anything that encourages red burn? Hell no, but this would be a second-rate red burn card across the board because it does 1 less damage than the mana you put into it. That's not very good. Like, compared to, like, Lightning Bolt, Lightning Strike, anything. So, I mean, yeah, it's such a classic red card. Why not throw it in? You know, whatever. Next up, coming in for a big ol' high five, we got another Gem Palm card, the Incinerator. It's a 2/1 for 3. It has cycling 2 with only 1 red this time. And when you cycle Gem Palm Incinerator, you may have it deal X damage to target creature where X is the number of goblins on the battlefield. So it's a goblin on tribal body when you need a body, and then it's a creature removal spell when you already have enough goblins and want to get something out of the way. Fantastic card. Next up, Honden of Infinite Rage, which is exactly how I feel about the black one. It's a 3 cost. Boy, they're getting cheaper with every card. 3 cost Legendary Enchantment Shrine. At the beginning of your upkeep, it deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of shrines you control. I'm pretty confident that would be 1, so this isn't a very good card. Unless somebody in Historic has the balls to play a 5-color Honden deck, which I think we only have 3 or 4 of them, so good luck with that. This is just weird. It's an odd choice. Next up, Tectonic Reformation. Oh, this better not blow up a land. It's a 2-cost enchantment. Each land in your hand has cycling 1 red. Oh, and then cycling 2 by itself. All right. Well, it doesn't blow up a land. This is actually an exceptional card. People don't appreciate this for what it is. In red, if you're going with a speed deck, which, you know, once again, I don't encourage. It's been a disaster for the last 3 years with red speed decks. But if you're one of those unintelligent, unsophisticated monkeys playing a mono red deck that, you know, wins on turn 4 or 5, you might want this because if you're forced to go past turn 3 or 4, it'll be useful. Even if you're not, it might. If you just find yourself getting flooded with land, you pay 1, ditch it, and grab the next card off the library. And then if you don't have enough lands, then you pay 2 and cycle this to maybe pull a land. Typically, in the average, you know, speedy red deck, you don't need probably, honestly, even the 4th land. So if you're starting to pull lands, you can fix it with this. Problem is, you gotta spend 2 mana on this, which if it's a fast deck, you gotta spend every point of mana to do as many points of damage to your opponent as possible. And this does not help. So this is almost more of like a red mid-range exclusive card, but not necessarily. I think what it's really going to end up in is obviously the red-white cycling deck right now. And that deck with Zenith is complete and utter ass cancer. In fact, really just that card is ass cancer. So next up, we've got Enchantress's Presence, once again with a very questionable and almost definitely incorrect apostrophe. I guess it's technically legal in the English language if you want to purposely look like an idiot. I'm going to appear to be making a grammatical mistake because the dictionary says I technically can. Woo! It's like not using an Oxford comma. You just look stupid. So anyway, it's a 3-cost enchantment. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. Fantastic. Yeah, that's what Theros Beyond Death Aura stacks needed. Anything that says whenever this thing that's probably going to happen every turn happens, have a card, it's broken. That's just a given. You can't let somebody draw that many damn cards. Unless the condition is super, super rare. And in Standard right now, it is not. So screw this card. And I guess there's more Hondens than I thought. Here's the 5th one, I believe. Honden of Life's Web, which costs 5. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token onto the battlefield for each shrine you control. Maybe people will play 5-color shrines. I don't think that deck could stand on its own, but it would be kind of funny. Hell, I might do it. I just don't want to, use wild cards in any of these. And if you think I'm giving like $10, $15, $20 for this pack, dream on. Next up, Krosan Tusker. It's a 7-cost green creature, boar beast, 6/5 with cycling 3, and when you cycle it, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and then put it in your hand, not onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Kind of weak for 3, but it is like hey, I only need this one, I actually have 7, and if I don't have 7, I probably could use a land cards. So, alright. I don't think we really needed this, and it's kind of underpowered, doesn't have trample, nothing, not even high devotion. But I'll take it over some broken crap any day. Next up, Roar of the Worm. It's a sorcery, 7 cost, brings out a 6/6 worm creature token. It has flashback 4, so even cheaper than the original casting cost. Oh boy. That's kind of neat, and it's not technically a creature spell. This plays around some levels of very specific suppression, I guess. The 6/6 worms don't have like trample or flying or hexproof or any of that bullshit, so sure, I like this card. Next up, here we go. This is a mythic. It's Mirari's Wake. It's a 2-cost or a 2-color 5-cost, pardon me, enchantment. Creatures you control get +1/+1, so Universal Lord card. That's just fantastic. Like, we really needed that. And whenever you tap a land for mana, oh god, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. Really, another land doubler, because that wasn't enough of a problem in Standard already? Are you kidding me? So people tend to run this, your lands all tapped for 10 mana in Simic, but would they splash white to run this? Probably. Have I seen Simic ramp engine into a Fires of Invention into a Gates deck? Yes, I have. 5 colors. So it's not like this goes in nothing. I feel like, 5's up there, but wow, I mean, +1/+1. This could even be just a Selesnya card. It would be hyper powerful. When you're flooding all kinds of tokens at the highest rate you possibly can, give them all +1/+1 indiscriminately. Doesn't have to all be a warrior, a human, or any of that crap. So yeah, I think they went a little far on that one. Next up, we got Akroma's Memorial, another mythic from M13. Interesting. 7-cost legendary artifact. Oh no, I knew I remembered this card. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. Creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from black and red. Yep, that's some classic Akroma shenaniganery. So get to 7 mana, win the game is what they're saying. Absolute, complete, and utter horseshit. Now that said, this doesn't have lifelink. Now that said, you're going to win anyway. I mean, flying, vigilance, and trample. And haste. And first strike. And pro black and red. I mean, vigilance, first strike, and flying. Do you even need lifelink at that point? Or can you just sit on your ass and defend yourself? Absolutely ridiculous, unwelcomed, unneeded, overpowered pile of horseshit. What were they thinking? So next up, Ratchet Bomb, coincidentally your mom's nickname in high school, Oh Burn. It's a 2-cost artifact, and you can tap it and put a charge counter on it, and then eventually you can tap it to sacrifice it and destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Ratchet Bomb. Hey, that sounds familiar. It's that land we have right now. Except, I'd say, maybe faster, but definitely cheaper. So this mixed with, I want to say Blast Zone. Yeah, you could do some damage. It's kind of a limited, interesting utility card. It's more of a sideboard thing. I'm not too mad this is here, but boy, they can devastate your board state with this. It affects them too, so it can backfire. It just, everybody kind of hates this card. I tend to agree. Next up we had Ulamog. Yeah, he's in my last video. He's in here now, duh. And then we've got Ancient Ziggurat. It's a land, uncommon only, not legendary, and you can tap it and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells. Okay, interesting, nice card, good fixing. This is the definition of bread and butter utility cards that you need to just make a whole bunch of different decks run at a basic level and not fall flat on their ass. You got this, and then you've got Akroma's Memorial. I'm starting to think 2 different people designed this set. And one of them was an idiot, parentheses, probably Mark Rosewater, end parentheses. And finally, always save the best for last. Easily top 10 in my most hated cards in the entire history of the game. This deck almost made me quit Magic back when like Gatecrash and RTR and all that shit were out. Which coincidentally is right when I started. That and Boros Minotaurs. I just thought this game's unbalanced, broken shit, and f*** it. So if you're not familiar with the Maze's End deck, it runs on Gates, and this is the only win condition in the deck. It's a land, so good luck stopping it or removing it or really interacting with it in any way. And the entire rest of the deck, I am not exaggerating, the entirety of the deck is Gates and board wipes. That's it. I mean, I guess counter spells and point removal, kill, and exiling, because it's 5 color already. So it's best of removal in 5 colors with a win con that can't be stopped. This makes Nexus Loop look like nothing. This makes Teferi Lockout Prison look like nothing. This makes Esper Control look like nothing. This is one of the most toxic decks I have ever come across in 7+ years of playing Magic. I want to find every copy of this card in existence and burn it. So does everyone. I want to find everybody who ever played a Maze's End deck and burn them. When they first announced that we're going to Ravnica, just, hey, the name of this next set is Ravnica, whatever the hell, first thing out of my mouth was, if they print Maze's End, I'm done with this fucking game. Many people hear the phrase Maze's End and immediately have PTSD. F*** this piece of shit. F*** whoever decided to put it into this collection or whatever the f*** they're calling it. Nobody wanted this. Nobody needed this. We don't need another Rise of the Second Sun or Seventh, whatever the f*** that card was. Approach of the second wave of people quitting Magic, I think was the name of it. And this is worse, because at least you can counter that spell. Unless you're running Rubble Reading, you lost. You lost. It's that simple. You lost. You lost the game. They're going to board wipe and counter you to oblivion. You cannot win. They are going to turn around in about a month and ban this. I guarantee you. So if you're not familiar and haven't read it yet, Maze's End enters the battlefield tapped. Whoopity-doo, who gives a shit? So it taps for 1 colorless. Once again, who gives a shit? Here's the problem. Pay 3, tap it. Return Maze's End to its owner's hand, then search your library for a gate card. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. If you control 10 or more gates with different names, you win the game. So you can't stop this ability without, I guess, repudiate and one other thing. I don't think you can name this by name with Unmoored Ego. It has to be a non-land permanent. You can't really destroy it at instant speed. Even if you could, they just pay 3, tap it in response and sack it and do it again. Or not sack it, bounce it, whatever. So once this comes into play, you have 10 turns until you lose. Well, not even, because you probably drop gates before that. You have about 7 turns before you lose. Or 6 or 8, or who gives a shit. So you can do nothing to stop it. And like I said, their entire deck is gates. And then control, board wipes, counter spells, whatever. Giant Defenders, Hexproof, Death Touch, Lifelinkers, whatever is going to stop you, that's what they run. So you won't resolve a single spell. If you do, they'll just blow it away. Unless you have Repudiate, which stops this card 1 time. Once. You have to have a land destruction card to stop this. And remember, they just sit there and then do this during your end step. So if you try to target it with a land destruction, they'll just do this in response. This card, for all intents and purposes, cannot be stopped, okay? You are going to lose on turn 11, and you're not going to be able to do shit in the meantime. It is the most toxic deck in the history of Magic. This makes Cobblade look like shit. This makes Goblin Charbelcher look like nothing. This makes Mind Sculptor Lockout look like an absolute playdate. Nothing in the game compares to this. Even that douchebag in 2014 that won the Modern World Tournament with this ridiculous Sphinx's Revelation loop shit that was basically Eggs 2.0 doesn't even hold a candle to these decks. No. Nothing in the game. Nothing in the history of the game, except maybe when they didn't have a limit of 4 cards per deck. Maybe I'll give you that one. 20 copies of Channel, 20 Fireballs, and 20 lands. Actually, I think 60 wasn't even the limit back then. I don't know. At least then you could maybe stop the spells. Yeah, no, this is the #1 most toxic deck ever. Ever in the history of the game. And now they've added it to Historic. What the actual f*** were they thinking? So there goes Historic. By the way, in related news, guys, they're permanently making Historic a permanent queue, a permanent playable format on Arena. Great timing, you just ruined it. You know what? If people don't catch on quick enough and build this damn deck and ruin it, I'll build it and I'll personally ruin Historic. I'll go play it 12 hours a day, beat everybody with it, and be single-handedly responsible for being 1, the most highly ranked Historic player in the world, and 2, single-handedly responsible for it getting banned. So definitely don't go download an image of this card, tweet it at some kind of Wizards account, and tell them to go f*** themselves. I mean, definitely don't do that. And while we're listing off things not to do, don't go down in the comment section and say that I'm overreacting to this card and this deck archetype and pretend that there's some way to stop it. There isn't. You're an idiot. You are a talentless, knowledgeless idiot who clearly did not play back then if you haven't heard of the Maze's End deck, and don't think that it is complete AIDS to play against, because it is. So this is probably, out of all the historic anthologies, the stupidest card include decision ever. It's going to ruin the format, and they're going to act all surprised. Oh, we didn't know people would throw this in a control deck? Really? Dumbasses? And then they're going to ban it without apologizing and probably blame the people running it or something. Yeah, well, you're all a bunch of clueless idiots, Wizards. This is one of the most hated cards in the history of the game by the majority of the community. So let's throw it in and see what happens. Where's the upside? Where's the positive here? What good did you think would come out of putting this in here? I would love an actual answer from any of the staff. In fact, there's probably going to be 10,000 people watching this video. All 10,000 of you need to go immediately on social media and bombard their accounts with a question of why they thought this was a necessary include and why they think a Control-a-thon shit show deck with this garbage in it would benefit the game in any way. Maybe they'll get so tired of it, we'll actually get an answer. So please go do that. They seem to, be responding really well to getting bombarded with questions and accusations from the community over their dumb decisions lately, so we might as well keep it going. So do go do that. FYI, they are petty little sensitive snowflakes and will block you. But who gives a shit? We need to send them a message. So go do that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.